this edition of Sightings. 28 years ago, something strange crashed into the icy waters of Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia.
I believe that this was a device, not a visitor.
Now, investigator Chris Stiles says the Canadian government also thinks it was a UFO, and he's got the documents to prove it. George Brijac is a tough New Jersey cop with a secret weapon for corralling killers: his psychic sense.
I got sick to my stomach. I knew he was the killer. I knew I was going to get him.
This might be the voice of an actual ghost recorded aboard the Queen Mary. Sightings investigates. And is there a toxic killer loose in America's most secret military base, Area 51?
Nobody had any idea what this stuff might have been.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Whatever you do, don't call Police Lieutenant George Brijac a psychic. He bristles at the term. Lieutenant Brijac says his unusual ability is just gut instinct, intuition, the feeling a cop gets after 30 years on the beat. But whatever you call it, this New Jersey police lieutenant has a gift for solving unsolvable crimes. Paterson, New Jersey is Lieutenant George Brijac's beat. He knows this town like the back of his hand, and he also seems to know something more.
Working with George is like working with a super cop, and you have like a human lie detector right next to you.
A lot of police officers develop good intuition after years on the force. It's a well-documented phenomenon called the blue sense. But George Brijac's ability is different.
I do believe George is a psychic cop. He just knows. He sees things that other people don't see.
Brijac grew up in Paterson. His family moved here in the 1940s when the town was prosperous, clean, and safe.
It's my city. I know the streets. I know the people. I know what the people think. My city.
George Brijac has seen a lot of changes in Paterson over the years. When the mills closed in the 1950s, economic hardship caused many people to leave, and those who stayed, like George's father, were bitter.
I remember him brutally beating my mother one night. I think about that maybe that's the reason why I was given this gift.
It was the love of his mother and his deep faith that helped George persevere through the hard times. He fulfilled his dream of becoming a police officer in 1963.
Lieutenant George Brijac brings to fruition those many gifts that God has given to him. That creates power.
No, I know I'm right. I get paid to be right.
From the start, Brijac knew he had a knack for police work. He worked hard to develop his talents, but even he isn't prepared to take all of the credit for the special gift he brings to every case.
It's crazy because I'll be driving down the street like this and something will tell me to make a left turn, and I'll make a left turn, maybe go down a block or two and get somebody with a pocket full of dope.
The first time George realized he had more than just good gut instinct was also the first time he worked on a seemingly unsolvable case.
I'll never forget, it was November 2nd, 1979. We had a homicide in the city of Paterson where a 7-year-old boy was missing for like 3 weeks.
The boy's name was Delvis Mateus. An intensive search over all of Paterson was underway. George was assigned to a stretch of track that yielded nothing.
When we went to leave, I actually got in the car, like you see on television. I put the key in the car, and something told me, go check the wooded area across the railroad tracks. After leaving the car, I got sick to my stomach, I got upset inside, and I knew I was going to find the little boy's body.
George was right. He found the boy's body under a piece of plywood. 2 weeks later, George Brijac had the killer behind bars. After the Delvis Mateus case, the other officers in Brijac's department started to sit up and take notice.
Yes, you get an instinct. I get instincts. But this man, certain things, he gets a natural instinct.
Sometimes it like bothers you to think that, like, why is it you? Like, why do you have this thing about you? There was a time in Paterson where I think I solved 3 or 4 unsolved homicides in 6 months. It was crazy.
Perhaps it's no coincidence that Brijak's most famous case was solved because of his desire to bring a wife-beater to justice. The victim was 24-year-old Candy Austin, who seemed to have led a charmed life until she met John Short.
You'd have to say her family was like the Norman Rockwell all-American family. The little house with the picket fence, and just by fate, Candy Austin met John Short, and it became a nightmare for Candy.
Candy was drawn to John Short from the moment they met. After a whirlwind romance, they married and had a child. But friends sensed a dark side to John's character.
My first instinct when I met John was I just didn't think he was the right man for her.
Candy pulled away from her family and friends. She didn't want anyone to know that John was beating her up. The violence continued to escalate. On June 22, 1981, in the parking lot of the Willowbrook Mall, John and Candy had a terrible fight. In his book, Buried Mistakes, author Michael Kaplan suggests that Candy's death may have been a tragic mistake.
I don't think that he meant to kill her, but then he panicked and put a screwdriver through her abdomen.
John knew that if he called the police, he would surely be the prime suspect. He needed someone else to discover the body.
He says to his father-in-law, which was a key word, let's go look for her, meaning you and me. Not, I'm gonna go look for her. Let's go look for her. He wanted the father with him. And he says to the father-in-law, you know what? He said, let's check the Willowbrook Mall.
Back at the scene of the crime, at the Willowbrook Mall, John Short put on the performance of his life.
He runs to the car, John Short. He said, Dad, the door's locked. He tried the door. Give me something to break the window with. So the father-in-law gave him a hammer. He comes back to the car, very excited. He smashes the glass.
Short's diabolical plan worked. Candy's father was the first to see his daughter's blood-soaked body lying on the front seat of the car. No one suspected John, and he continued to play the role of the bereaved husband for more than 6 years.
I had a series of dreams about Candy over the 6 years. She'd say, I can't stay, but I just want you to know that I'm okay, but you have to find the person who did this to me. And I had these dreams up until the time I met George. So it's almost like she was guiding me towards George.
Until 1987, George Briđak knew nothing more about the murder of Candy Short than what he'd read in the newspapers. But as soon as the case was handed over to him, he felt a strong connection. It was just the kind of case he wanted.
I took that file to my camp and read it for 3 days and come back and told my chief, I said, I'm gonna solve that murder, chief.
George used the painful memories of his own abusive father to help him form a subconscious connection to the victim, the killer, and the witnesses.
I felt that he sometimes knew what I was going to say before I said it.
I knew inside of me that the father had something important to tell me. And 2 days later, I called him and I said, Fred, meet me by the Tic-Toc Diner on Route 3, I want to talk to you. He was like startled because I knew he had something inside of him to tell me. And what made me feel good about it at that point was that this thing inside of me still worked. He says, I'll never forget. He says, I see my daughter's body every day of my life, the way it was found. He says he had to know the car was there before we got to the mall.
George went to the Willowbrook Mall. He climbed to the rooftop parking space where Candy's body had been found. He closed his eyes and relived the crime. He saw the killer. He saw John Short.
And I talked to him for a few minutes. I got sick to my stomach. I knew he was the killer. I knew I was going to get him.
Again, George Briđak was right. He saw through Short's lies, pierced his alibi, and on February 2nd, 1988, 7 years after Candy's murder, George arrested John Short. He had done what no other cop could do. He was exhausted and exhilarated.
I said to my chief, I said, this is great. I said, man, the magic is back inside of me. And when we arrested him, it was like the greatest high of my life.
That's right, don't forget it.
He doesn't want any plaques or medals. He's not in it for the glory. George Briđak is only doing what his unique gift compels him to do, and he still does it every day.
When I leave this earth, my mark is here. I did what I had to do.
Where does his ability come from? Why does this cop seem to possess a supernatural power beyond reason
You know, I really thank God for the gift that he has given me, because this is the perfect example how this gift works.
George Brižak draws strength from his ability to help mend the hurt in a grieving family. He's also gratified that his ability is the reason why John Short is serving 15 to 30 in New Jersey State Prison for murder.
Next, ancient stones reveal prehistoric man charted the stars and performed brain surgery.
Was South American civilization this sophisticated? I would say yes.
Archaeologists search out an ancient site. They dig up shards of pottery and hand tools and desiccated bone. And then with these fragments of civilization, they build the jigsaw puzzle that we call history. But a newly discovered piece of the puzzle just doesn't seem to fit. Thousands of carved rocks called the Ica stones suggest that eons ago, humankind had already mastered astronomy, medicine, and even aerodynamics. If the Ica stones are genuine, every history book in the world will have to be rewritten. I traveled to the small, bustling town of Ica in central Peru and was surprised to find that perhaps the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century was not being kept in a guarded vault or an illustrious university, but in the private museum of Dr. Javier Cabrera. There, I found these carved stones, about 15,000 of them, that Dr. Cabrera claims were largely discovered in the nearby mountains in the mid-1960s. The Ica stones depict knowledge that ancient peoples are not supposed to possess. Here, a prehistoric astronomer studies a comet through a telescope. This is a view of the Earth, complete with all 7 continents as seen from space. There are scenes of sophisticated medical procedures as performed by ancient surgeons. Dr. Cabrera, this is obviously a surgery here. What do we see here?
Transplant of cerebro.
Of the brain?
The brain.
How old are these stones, which so accurately depict modern procedures like this heart transplant? It has been impossible to scientifically date them, but this carving of a man riding a pterodactyl seems to indicate a time well before humankind was known to walk on Earth.
Paleontologists and anthropologists tell us that the dinosaurs disappeared 65 million years ago and that man appeared during the last million years. But the stones tell us something else.
Energy of the human being.
Dr. Cabrera, a physician and professor of biology and anthropology at the University of Ica, has been vilified and ridiculed by many of his more mainstream colleagues. They contend that the Ica stones must be fake because they contradict the known timeline of history. But adventurer and author David Childress believes that the Ica stones are not the only potential evidence that points to the existence of an advanced prehistoric culture in Peru.
Archaeologists are starting to find out that civilizations in South America are incredibly old. Yearly, they keep pushing back history and civilization in South America. I think we're going to find that there are even older civilizations than those who have been discovered so far.
Evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization is supported by the legend of Viracocha, a mysterious stranger who was said to travel from town to town, spreading secret knowledge.
The Peruvian story of Viracocha is that Viracocha landed in the area of Ica. Perhaps someone from Atlantis or some other lost civilization is now a refugee from his own homeland because it's gone, and he literally walks the earth, going from town to town, city to city, and nation to nation, teaching the civilized arts of his ancient country.
If they are genuine, the Ica stones will provide scientific support for what is now only legend. But to date, not one single mainstream scientist has been willing to take any serious steps toward authenticating the stones.
Dr. Cabrera's collection is so fantastic, so amazing, that official archaeologists just simply refuse to have a look at them. They're just impossible by normal historical standards. Yet what we have with Dr. Cabrera may be something that is so important in a historical way with Peru that we've got to look at it, and we've got to either authenticate once and for all these stones or disprove them.
Why do you think some scientists have been so skeptical, so slow to accept the story of the stones? Are they threatened by them?
Por cuanto los arqueólogos decían que estas piedras...
Archaeologists have said these stones are falsifications. If there's one thing I regret, it is not having someone who seconds my opinion. I am simply an isolated investigator whom others attack by saying that these images are things, in reality, that I myself ordered engraved.
Skepticism about the origin of the Ica stones began with the discovery itself. Newspaper accounts were vague, describing the stones as part of a secret hoard found at an undisclosed location. The police, suspecting grave robbing or antiquities smuggling, interrogated Basilio Mendoza, who was said to be selling similar stones to tourists. When questioned by police, Mendoza claimed that he had carved all 15,000 of the stones himself. He also sent a confession to the newspapers. Case closed, as far as archaeologists are concerned. But before you return a verdict of guilty, consider this. If Mendoza had stuck to his original story of finding the Ica stones at an ancient burial site, he would have been charged with a violation of the country's strict antiquities protection law, a crime punishable by a lengthy prison term. By claiming he had manufactured the stones himself, Basilio Mendoza was able to both keep out of jail and continue selling the stones.
When the stones are put in their proper order, the message I read has not only to do with Peru and its territories, but with the world. And although this sounds like an exaggeration, the universe.
Dr. Cabrera believes that his interpretation of the stones offers a challenging message about not only the past, but also the future. And that is why traditional scientists have rejected the legitimacy of the stones.
We are living in apocalyptic times. Why? Because man has reversed the purpose of life, and selfishness is causing him to lose the balance of the planetary ecosystem. All the wise men of the world know that we are headed towards a cataclysm.
Author of Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock, has found this same apocalyptic message among the ruins of many other ancient civilizations.
We have inherited a remarkable legacy of knowledge from what appears to be a highly sophisticated and advanced civilization that was destroyed in an enormous cataclysm. And what this legacy repeatedly and urgently warns us of is that the cataclysm will recur.
These warnings may sound extreme, but there is scientific evidence that, through the millennia, major Earth changes have significantly altered our planet. What artifacts could survive this kind of global cataclysm? Not wood, not paper, but stone.
Many researchers, like Graham Hancock, believe in the existence of an advanced civilization predating the Stone Age, but do not believe that the Ica stones are genuine. Others, like Dr. Javier Cabrera, adamantly believe in the legitimacy of the stones and insist that they are among the most important artifacts ever discovered.
Next, Jurassic Park isn't science fiction anymore.
We're still learning a great deal about the types of organisms that we're able to revive.
Here are some of the stories Sightings is following in the news. Ancient enzymes are being extracted from insects found in prehistoric amber. It may be the first step toward a real-life Jurassic Park.
Robin Steele is the president of Ambergene Corporation, a small biotech firm in San Carlos, California. Since 1992, Ambergene has been successfully reactivating microorganisms trapped for millions of years inside ancient amber.
We step back and really marvel at what we're doing. And our hope is that we're going to be able to find some very exciting information that can help us understand the secret of life, essentially.
Ambergene technicians believe that propagating ancient organisms will now have important commercial applications. Better laundry detergents, tastier beer and wine, stronger paper products, and most importantly, more effective antibiotics.
If we can find an organism that produces an antibiotic that is effective against these multiple drug-resistant bacteria that we have nowadays, it certainly will save a lot of lives. So I think there is a tremendous potential for a discovery that would really help.
100 million years ago, these tiny organisms got stuck in tree sap, which fossilized, creating a suspension chamber we call amber.
Hypothesis is that these microorganisms, because they're ancient, they are producing chemical compounds that are novel in structure, chemical compounds that are not found in modern organisms.
Ambergene was the first company to develop a process that allows scientists to reach the mummified remains of insects inside the amber without compromising the microorganisms dormant within them. If you saw Jurassic Park, you have a pretty good idea where some people find all this may lead.
We just don't know. We're still learning a great deal about the types of organisms that we're able to revive from this ancient amber.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, government workers are taking off in the middle of the night from McCarran Airport on this plane, and they're landing at this military installation, which until recently didn't officially exist. That's the routine for engineers and technicians who work at Area 51, a top-secret aircraft design and testing facility in the Nevada desert, and the location of frequent UFO sightings. Now, a group of Area 51 employees are suing the government, claiming that they have gotten sick from on-the-job exposure to highly toxic chemicals. Rutgers University biochemist Dr. Peter Kahn has studied tissue samples from deceased Area 51 sheet metal worker Robert Frost. Dr. Kahn found levels of dioxin and dibenzofuran never before found in any human.
When I first saw his profile, my reaction is, what on earth has the man been exposed to? So I sent the profile to some colleagues around the country and other countries, and people said, what on earth is this? And I was not in a position really to tell them. Nobody had any idea what this stuff might have been.
And it is unlikely that anybody ever will. Like just about everything else at Area 51, the chemical compounds that workers have been exposed to there are classified. Whatever killed Robert Frost remains a mystery.
What certainly has raised my curiosity, especially when I consider that my tax dollars are paying for the damn place.
In Antarctica, scientists have confirmed for the first time an unprecedented increase in the melting and disintegration of this polar ice cap. The resulting excess water could cause seas worldwide to rise as much as 150 feet. The resulting change in mass and pressure has caused some scientists to seriously consider a previously ridiculed theory that the entire crust of the Earth could shift.
Should the polar ice cap go in motion, the first thing that will happen will be tremendous earthquakes worldwide, and at the same time, volcanic activity erupting. And the wind will rage wildly, trying to seek a new equilibrium.
Noon's theory of massive global shift is controversial, but the effects of melting polar ice are not. Recently, researchers at a Woods Hole oceanographic conference theorized that as much as 1/3 of eastern Antarctica could soon slip, a theory originally supported by Albert Einstein.
We'll have more stories from the news next time. Now, here's what's coming up on Sightings.
Just what did crash into Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia 28 years ago?
We thought it was a plane crash. The way it turned out was, we don't know what it was.
And investigating America's most haunted ship.
I didn't expect this much activity.
While it may be true that the Mounties always get their man, on October 4th, 1967, they apparently let a UFO slip through their fingers. It was on that day at 11:45 p.m. that a mysterious craft plummeted into the waters of Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia in southeastern Canada. Now, nearly 30 years later, the answer to the Shag Harbor mystery is about to be uncovered.
172 miles away from the nearest international airport and 178 miles away from any Air Force testing range, Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia is an unlikely location for sightings of unidentified spacecraft, but UFO investigator Chris Stiles has come to this tiny outpost on the eastern edge of North America because of stories his grandfather told him about one strange October night in 1967. Stiles has uncovered an extraordinary paper trail of evidence, confirming that something anomalous, something very unconventional, crashed into the Atlantic off the coast of Shag Harbor, just as his grandfather had always described.
He told me about a 60-foot disc with 4 bright white lights that had hovered for a time in the air, tilted at a 45-degree angle, and slid down and hit the water surface with a loud noise.
Nearly 30 years after the crash, Stiles has discovered that there were many other eyewitnesses who still remember the crash like it was yesterday.
We thought it was a plane crash. The way it turned out wasn't. We don't know what it was.
Laurie Wickens is a local fisherman, born and raised around Shag Harbor. He was driving at night with several friends when he spotted the strange craft.
We just come over that hill and we was driving towards Woods Harbor and we see lights. We thought it was an airplane that was coming on and going off, 4 in sequence. 1 would come on, and 2, and 3, and 4, then they'd all be out for a few seconds, then it'd start over.
Wickens and his friends saw the object crash into the harbor. They called the RCMP, who responded to the impact site.
At that time, there was a single light, maybe a half-mile offshore, quite visible, but it was really dark. I was left on shore to keep an eye on the light and to watch where if anything happened to it, and briefly interview the witnesses as I was doing it. Within 5 minutes, 7 minutes, the light extinguished.
The RCMP alerted the Coast Guard, and until they arrived, local fishermen scoured Shag Harbor looking for survivors of what was thought to be a light plane crash. Captain Lawrence Smith was among the first to reach the impact site.
All I saw was some heavy yellow foam floating on the water. It was thick like shaving cream, but it was about 3 inches thick on top of the water. There was no smell. And I thought then, well, you know, if a plane crashed and it skidded across the water for a ways, that it would make a foam. But then I couldn't figure out why it would be yellow.
Early search and rescue efforts were conducted in full view of the public. Films were made. Newspapers carried the story as front-page news. Then, without warning, there was no more public disclosure. Chris Stiles believes this is because of what may have been found there.
I believe that this was a device, possibly a craft, possibly a probe, from another intelligent civilization, not of this earth.
Stiles has reached this conclusion after examining hundreds of documents obtained through the Canadian version of the U.S. Freedom of Information Act. Among the documents he has uncovered is this Canadian Armed Forces memo stating that the Rescue Coordination Center conducted preliminary investigation and discounted the possibilities that the sighting was produced by an aircraft, flare, or any other known objects.
There were a number of related sightings that night. In those hours before, an Air Canada flight saw UFO activity on the horizon. They were greatly disturbed. There was apparently large explosions occurring, and as the phenomena approached the aircraft, there was a lot of communication with the towers, and eventually it was decided to vacate the airspace and seek alternate routes.
Even more eyewitness accounts were found in a secret RCMP file.
Captain Leo Howard Mersey was the master of a dragger. He had 18 men aboard. All were witnesses to 4 UFOs in the distance on the water surface. They had radar returns, and after observing them for 2 hours, one of them became airborne and arced in the sky southwest toward the Shag Harbor area, which was 175 miles away.
As a public search for the craft began in Shag Harbor, behind the scenes,
many people have come, including locals, to tell a story that while this operation was going on in Shag Harbor, there was another operation up the coast about 25 miles away off of Government Point.
In 1967, Government Point was the site of a super-secret military base. Former base divers claimed the search at Shag Harbor diverted attention away from the UFO's final resting place, off Government Point.
While they were down there, there was still activity going on. They were reluctant to confirm details, but they knew that this thing was being repaired. As one person told me, the other object was standing nines for it, is the expression they use, sort of overlooking and giving it protection, assistance, whatever was necessary. And they're quite certain from their experiences that this was nothing that was produced here on Earth. And some of the divers insist that they did indeed bring up some debris.
Stiles searched for documentation to support the divers' claims and found it in this letter written 2 months after the Shag Harbor incident. It specifically mentions DND, Department of National Defense, UFO material available for review. Based on this information, Chris Stiles is mounting a recovery operation to search for more UFO debris. Sightings will document this search and bring you the findings on an upcoming edition of our program.
Next, is the Queen Mary the most haunted spot in America?
In my opinion, there are at least 600 ghosts that walk these corridors.
In her heyday, the luxury liner HMS Queen Mary hosted royalty and heads of state and Hollywood's most brilliant stars. But she also carried third-class passengers dreaming of a better life, young men going off to battle for the first time during World War II, and prisoners of war who faced an uncertain fate. All that emotion, the dreams, the fears, the hopes, the history, is still felt today because, as Sightings' Carla Wall discovered, the Queen Mary is haunted by the past.
You don't have to stay here. Yes, you can do that too if you want to.
This night, there are no real children aboard the Queen Mary.
I want to go back, then I want to go back. Listen. Yes! I want to look. I'm looking.
Psychic Peter James believes that the tiny voice calling out to him is physical proof that the restless spirit of a child is trapped inside this aging luxury liner.
Let me help you. Okay, talk to me again.
In my opinion, there are at least 600 ghosts that walk these corridors regularly.
The Queen Mary has become known in paranormal circles as a holding cell for the netherworld. Eerie echoes of the past still resound in every corner. From the moment she was first launched in 1936, the Queen Mary changed the face of transatlantic travel. She was the fastest ship in the water, built to carry the world's rich and famous. But World War II changed all that. The great liner was stripped and put into military service, ferrying soldiers and prisoners around the world. It was during the war, says ship officer Jenny Palmer, that a macabre incident turned the seas around the Queen Mary red with the blood of innocent men.
One of the escorting cruisers, when she was approaching the Scottish shorelines, turned accidentally in front of the Queen Mary. And the Queen Mary hit this cruiser. It was called the Curacao. And 336 men were lost.
Because of the danger posed by enemy submarines known to be operating in the area, the Queen Mary was ordered not to stop for survivors. The pathetic cries of dying men went unanswered but not unheard as the ship slowly sailed away. Has that chilling event from the past somehow been imprinted on the present? Paranormal researchers Richard and Deborah Sennett believe the Queen Mary is a classic site of what's known as residual haunting. At Sightings' request, the Sennetts have joined Peter James and a team of support technicians for a late-night surveillance. They've brought the tools of the paranormal trade, an electrostatic voltmeter to detect anomalous levels of static electricity, a thermocouple to measure minute temperature fluctuations, and highly sensitive microphones attached to digital recorders. 3D photographs will be taken with a stereoscopic camera, and heat-sensitive video imaging is provided by a thermovision camera. When you come, what are you looking for?
We're looking for evidence of paranormal activity. I mean, it's one thing to have a collection of stories about people sighting ghosts, but if we can get evidence to prove that there is something here,
At 1 a.m., the investigators are concentrating their activities deep below decks in an area of the ship not open to the public. Suddenly, we heard strange sounds resonate through the hull.
Hear it? Hear it? Hello? Speak to me.
But as suddenly as they appeared, the sounds vanished.
So the pool is right through these doors.
We went to the Queen Mary's indoor pool where Peter had first heard the cries of a ghostly child in 1991.
Activity.
People often see things from that on the second.
People have seen all kinds of different things.
Almost immediately, Richard's voltmeter begins to register electrostatic interference.
Listen to this. This is pretty strange.
So that's telling you what, Richard?
There's a strong static charge in here. There may well have been something in there. There's something moving around in there.
Photographer Paul Scarzo stayed in sync with anomalous meter readings.
Every time the electrostatic voltmeter would spike, that's when I would take a picture.
His 3D camera has multiple lenses with shutters that fire simultaneously. The result is to provide slightly different angles of the same field of view.
When you're shooting in 3D photography, you're going to catch whatever the solid object is in all four lenses in one of the different sections of this changing area. He got a reading. It was a very impressive spike, and so I took a picture. We get an image. The image appears to be a solid object, and it's between Richard and I. Now, to do that would be physically impossible because the solid object only appears in one of the four frames.
Photographic experts cannot explain it since the camera shoots the four frames at the same time.
It's only in one of the frames. And for something to move in and out of the shot that fast would have to travel faster than the aperture speed. All four of these frames should be identical, and they're not. As far as an explanation for this kind of anomaly in the film, there isn't any.
The team moves on, 5 decks down, deep under the waterline. We work our way along the keel to the stem of the ship.
Listen. 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 There's that noise.
Eerie noises rumbling within the empty bulkheads mark this as another paranormal hotspot.
Hello? Now remember, we're 50 feet underwater.
This is the bow of the ship, the impact point where the Leviathan Queen Mary cut the Curacao in half. Is this wartime tragedy indelibly imprinted on the steel frame of the ship? As we descended into the bow, the thermovision camera registered inexplicable cold spots. Then, above the drone of the voltmeter, more strange noises. Amplified, the sound takes on some of the characteristics of a deep human voice.
An overall impression of this place, is this what you expected to find on the Queen?
I didn't expect this much activity. That's honest. I expected we'd get something by the pool and maybe something in the engine room, and the stories all indicate, you know, there's several ghosts here. I'm willing to say that there's much more than several, that there's a lot of psychic impressions on this ship.
In the many years that I've done ghost research, I would say, by far, no question, that in my opinion, the Queen Mary is one of the most haunted places in the country.
Speak to me. Talk to me.
There's an interesting expression many of us use to describe the feeling we get when visiting an historic place like the Queen Mary. We say it has a sense of history, that there's a tangible sense of the past imprinted on the present. That's the same definition many paranormal researchers use for the word haunting.
Next, from outer space to cyberspace, UFOs have found a home on the internet.
it will dwarf the power and the reach of other media.
Here at Sightings, viewer input is critical. It's through you that we learn about important new cases, intriguing opinions on paranormal phenomena, and of course, the skeptic's point of view. Recently, Sightings went online to give viewers instant access to our investigative team, and so Sightings could give something back to you.
If Alexander Graham Bell could see us now, phone lines being used to transfer messages, images, and thousands of pages of data from all over the world directly into your home computer. In the vast universe of cyberspace, Sightings maintains an outpost of information on America Online. Through AOL's subscription service, Sightings viewers can download information about UFOs and other paranormal phenomena. Sightings has also made it possible for AOL subscribers to exchange information with other paranormal enthusiasts and talk live with Sightings' own experts.
Why would the government cover up a balloon crash for so long?
Recently, subscribers had a chance to query Stanton Friedman and Carl Flock, two prominent UFO researchers who are often at loggerheads about the mysterious crash at Roswell, New Mexico. They brought their expertise online.
How can experts sort the genuine UFO reports from crackpots looking for publicity? You go first, Stanton.
Look at the credentials of the individuals they're dealing with.
You can look at what they tell you to see if it's consistent with the other information that you have available about what they're reporting.
Cyberspace is a new medium, and in some ways I expect it will dwarf the power and the reach of other media.
Michael Lindemann runs an online information center called the Institute for the Study of Contact with Non-Human Intelligence.
I actually think there's a very good match, in fact, between people working on the UFO subject and people in cyberspace. In a room full of UFO enthusiasts, you find lots of people with advanced degrees and lots of people with computer skills.
Nicknames can be used instead of real names online. This anonymity encourages hoaxing, but also allows reluctant witnesses to come forward.
More and more people will tell stories or share experiences and insights that they have literally kept to themselves all their life. And the story set apart by itself may be only curious, but set in a constellation of other stories from equally solid people, it becomes a phenomenon. It becomes something important.
Online, Sightings periodically conducts opinion polls on a variety of paranormal topics. Recently, we asked the question, do you believe that the government is involved in covering up the truth about their involvement in UFOs? Over 90% of the respondents answered yes. The U.S. government is covering up what they know. Through the online service, you can participate in the Sightings opinion polls. We'll bring you the results on future programs.
If you've had a paranormal experience, please write to us at Sightings. Sightings can also be contacted at America Online at keyword Sightings. At the Sightings Forum, download images, sounds, and QuickTime clips. Also, join us daily in our chat room, live on AOL.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.
Next on Sci-Fi, Dark Shadows.
Sci-Fi World. Monday, Superman. Tuesday, Creature Land. Wednesday, Intergalactic Land. Danger! Thursday, Fantastic Land. Friday, Inhuman Land.
Sci-Fi World, chain reactions of sci-fi's greatest hits. Weekdays, 11 to 4, Eastern and Pacific on Sci-Fi.